Hi everyone, I'm Allegra Integra, and today I'm going to do the mid-year book freakout tag. I think that's what it's called. That's a strange name, but this is my first tag video. Maybe I should do the newbie tag video first, but I'm not going to. I will link the original creators down below, and let's just get started. So the first question is the best book that you've read this year, and this was kind of a toss-up between two, but I'm going to try to follow the rules and actually just list one, and that's going to be In the Dream House by Carmen Miranda Machado. This is kind of an experimental memoir about the author's experience of being in a relationship with another woman that is psychologically and verbally abusive, which doesn't sound like necessarily something that should be somebody's favorite book, but because of its experimental style, I think that it really grabbed me. I listened to this on audiobook, which I think really pulled me in. It is done in a series of vignettes where she uses different literary and film techniques to describe what has happened to her. And each vignette is labeled or titled after that film style, writing style, philosophy. And I thought that was just a really interesting way to kind of separate yourself from the story, but also pull you in. I highly recommend it. I do know that this book in particular has actually been challenged as being put on high school reading lists because of some of the sexual content. And I am a huge proponent of reading banned books. I thought it was amazing. I will give a warning, clearly trigger warnings for abuse in relationships, domestic violence, homophobia, biphobia. It is pretty intense. There were a few times I did have to take a breather. That just speaks to how powerful this book is and why it is still sticking out to me as my favorite book so far, despite having read it, I think, in early February. The next question is, what is the best sequel that you've read this year? And this is kind of a no-brainer because I've only read one sequel. And that is, thankfully, it was really good, but that was The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin. That is the third book in the Broken Earth trilogy. And I really appreciated how it wrapped up the trilogy, and I think it created a wonderful conclusion to the entire story. So you can look at all three books as one piece, even though they are published separately and were written at different times. But it was just gorgeous. I can't really speak more to other sequels that I've read because I am not big on reading series I'm not big on reading series, and oddly enough, the ones that I have started reading this year don't have the other books out yet, and probably won't be out until next year or later because as much as I say I prefer standalones, I decided to read a bunch of series that now I have to wait for, which is part of why I prefer standalones. Regardless, The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin was amazing, and I'm really glad that if that's the sequel that I'm going to read this year, that was the one I chose. The third question is a new release that you want to read but haven't gotten to, and for this one I chose The Echo Wife, which is by Sarah Gailey. This is a science fiction book that I currently have checked out from the library, so hopefully I will get to it in July. And the basic premise is this woman, Evelyn, has been replaced by her clone. She knows this. The clone knows that she's a clone. I believe the clone's name is Martine. And the clone has started an affair with Evelyn's husband. However, this is not a spoiler. This is part of the brief synopsis. Her husband has been killed. And now things are going to get even messier. I am super excited about this. I think it sounds weird and twisty, and I know that this author has written something else that has gotten a lot of praise. I can't remember what it's called. If I remember, I'll stick it here. But I know I haven't read it. But I keep hearing good things about this kind of twisty sci-fi book, and I'm going to get to that in July. Next in this tag is, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? This is really the first year that I've paid attention to releases, and I think I actually put this one on my anticipated, in my brain, on my anticipated list last year, but it comes out this fall, and it is Nothing But Blackened Teeth, and that's by Cassandra Khaw. This is a horror novel. A lot of the early reviews are saying that, well, it's not necessarily super character focused. It will creep you out, and it can be pretty hard to scare me, so I'm looking forward to that. It's a haunted house horror novel, which is super intriguing to me, and it has a Japanese folklore twist because it is following this group of friends who've gone to a wedding of a young couple at a haunted home, which is from the Heian era of Japan, I believe, which was 700 BCE-ish, and look to like 1100. They have a lot of interpersonal drama, and then things get kind of that personal drama gets overshadowed because there's a ghost bride that is interrupting the festivities. That comes out this fall. It sounds like a perfect creepy fall read, and I am probably going to pre-order it because I don't want to wait for it from my library. Oh boy. So the next book is What Was Your Biggest Disappointment? And there are two books I think that could fall under this, but one of them is not so much a disappointment as it was just bad. So I will stick with this one, which I've already talked about in my vlog, which I posted earlier this month, and that is The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. I wanted this to be a really in-depth look at pandemic, the 1918 flu pandemic, and kind of a character study, which it did do, and I think the premise itself was set up really interesting, but there happened to be a twist in this book that really upset me and I feel like was just shoehorned in. So this particular twist is super outdated. Once it was telegraphed, it got really annoying, and it happened very quickly, and it seemed unnecessary in this story. I feel that it could have been handled in a better way. I don't mind books that are dramatic. I don't mind books that are meant to elicit emotions and like making me cry or making me feel sad. That's not a problem, but I do get really upset when I can tell how it's being manipulative, when it's not done in an artful way, or it's not done in, I guess, like what I would call a genuine way. And this one definitely felt a bit shoehorned in, a bit like, let's make this person cry, let's make this happen because we need to have a more personal story. It felt really rushed, and it felt manipulative. I don't know how else to describe that. It wasn't done artfully, and it felt cheap, I guess, is the best word to put it. So I was really disappointed in that because I've heard great things about Emma Donoghue. She also wrote the book Room, which from everything I've heard is a masterpiece. And this was definitely not a good showing for me. And the next question is, what was your biggest surprise? I feel like I don't go out of my wheelhouse very often, so this isn't the best answer. But I read No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood, and while I was pretty sure I was going to enjoy this, again, it's done in a slightly experimental style, similar to In the Dream House. Well, they're different experimental styles, but I like experimental styles in writing. I didn't expect this book to impact my behavior as much as it did. At the end of this story, and I talk about this in the wrap-up where I cover it, which I believe was May, in this story, at the end of it, it made me reflect on my own behaviors. And this is auto-fictional, so it is based on things that truly did happen to the author, but it's not a memoir so much as it is an experimental look at what these kind of things can do to people in general. I mean, I read books to have these different experiences, but I don't expect fiction to impact me in this way, like literally changing my behavior almost immediately after reading it, and it did. I highly recommend it. Just be prepared to cry. So to follow up on that, the question is, who is your favorite new to you or debut author? And I would have to say Rebecca Roanhorse. She wrote Black Sun. Rather, I read Black Sun this year, and that's the first of her books that I have read. And after being kind of disappointed in another fantasy story with a feminist slant, with a queer slant in it, that had shifting points of views, and this one also has shifting points of views, alternating points of views, I was a little wary at first, but it was amazing. This is one of the books that's the beginning of a series that I read this year, and I don't know when the next one's coming out, so I'm torturing myself, but it was fantastic. I know Rebecca Roanhorse has other works, so I plan on picking those up to tide me over until the next book in this series comes out. There's just, it was so nice to read. Nice is such a boring word, but it was so wonderful to read a fantasy setting that wasn't done in like fantasy medieval Europe. Same with the Broken Earth trilogy. This is a different take, and it's on pre-Columbian, inspired by pre-Columbian South and Central American cultures. I don't know, it was really beautifully done. I felt like all the point of views were like clearly written in a different voice, which I think is very difficult to do. And I don't want to have to wait for the next one, but I'm gonna, because I have to. See, this question, I don't know if I like doing tags. The next question is, who is your favorite or your newest fictional crush? I'm in my 30s. I don't get into fandoms the way I used to. I love talking about books. I love exploring different characters, but I don't get crushes on book characters. I don't really get crushes in general anymore. Some of that is I just don't have the time, even for real people. Maybe that's why people do have fictional crushes, and that's cool if you do, I think. You know, you do you, but I can't answer this question because I don't crush on fictional characters. Even though I don't crush on fictional characters, I absolutely do have favorite characters, and my newest favorite character is going to be Shiala from Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. I think it was Starla Reeves who referred to her as like our favorite murder mermaid lady, and I love that description. Part of the reason, she's the main reason that I want to know what happens next in Black Sun. I want to learn more about her. I think her backstory is going to be fleshed out, or at least I really hope it is, and I want to know more about who she is, why she is the way she is, and I don't know, I just loved reading from her perspective, and I think she's so cool and I'm just excited. I'm really excited to read more about her. I guess that's the closest thing to a crush I have, but again, I don't have a crush. I'm just curious and I want to know more about her. So the next question is a book that made you cry. And other than no one is talking about this, which I've already talked about, it would be actually a poetry collection that I've read, and that's Post-Colonial Love Poem by Natalie Diaz. Catching Copper is the poem that I keep raving about, and the first time that I read it, I had to put the book down because my eyes were tearing up. I don't often actually fully cry when I'm reading books anymore. I did a lot more when I was younger, but I can get super invested and have to take a moment to breathe, and occasionally I do tear up. That's particularly rare with poetry, and this poetry collection, not just Catching Copper, but that was the first one, did actually make me feel those deep, dark emotions and almost ruin my makeup. So check it out. To follow that up, the next question is a book that made you happy. I like to read books that make me angry. I like to read books that make me feel scared. I like to read books that do make me sad, even if they don't fully make me cry. So this answer might seem a little weird because I don't read a lot of happy books. Planning on changing some of that in the second half of the year because I need something lighthearted, but I haven't read a ton of lighthearted stuff. I don't think I've read anything truly lighthearted yet this year. But a book that did make me happy, at least at the end, was The Lamb Will Slaughter the Lion by Margaret Killjoy. This is kind of an urban fantasy horror novel or novella, but the overall optimism and utopia-esque feel that the book has, and the uplifting ending of the book as it's leading into the second book, this kind of made my little punk heart happy. I did actually recently pick up the sequel. It's going to be a nice quick read, and you'll probably hear about it either in this wrap-up or in my July wrap-up. I'm hoping it gives me the same kind of hopeful but still gritty, I guess, feelings. Next is, what is the most beautiful book that you have purchased this year? I was kind of hoping when I first heard about this tag that I wouldn't have an answer to this, but I did fall off the book buying wagon, surprise, surprise. And a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this because not everybody likes this art style, but I'm going to have to say my 50th anniversary copy of The Master and the Margarita. I just love this Art Deco diagonal cover. It has deckled edges, which I'm not a huge fan of for reading, but I think they look beautiful when we're talking just about the physical book itself. And then on the back as well, you get Moscow, I believe, and Israel, which are two locations in the book that fit in with this cover, front cover. Even the spine stays in that, and we have the little cat at the top. I don't know, this is just so beautiful, and I Can't wait to read this so I can proudly display it, because right now it's kind of tucked away. I feel a little weird about displaying books I haven't read. Regardless, I think this is gorgeous. I love this style. I love the split part of it, and I am so excited that I own it. And last but not least, what books do I need to read by the end of the year? All of them that I've bought or that I already own that I haven't read, which is a lot. So I guess this is where I'm going to break away from saying just one book. I truly do want to read some lighthearted books, or at least more hopeful books. So I actually have The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I absolutely want to read that here shortly. I actually have a project coming up, so you'll see that for sure. I will be reading that soon. I also want to read the newest copy of Beowulf, the newest translation that I recently purchased, as well as Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I have not read that, and as a fan of Gothic novels and Gothic literature, that's kind of a travesty, as well as Lord of the Rings, because that's something I used to read every year, and I haven't read it in a long time. And that's all I have for this book tag. I am excited to see where I am in 6 months, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.